You're listening to The Observing Eye. Pirate radio for the mind. Coming at you fresh from the computer hell cabin.
Hello, you beautiful lot. It's Friday, the 28th of June, 2024, and you're listening to episode 71 of The Observing Eye, coming at you live from the computer hell cabin. Every week we get psychological, philosophical, and all manner of introspective. I'm David, and this week we are looking at the power of storytelling on human perception. From the earliest cave paintings to the latest blockbuster movies, storytelling has been a fundamental part of the human experience. But why is that? Why do we, as a species, feel such a deep connection to narratives? And how do these stories shape our perceptions, our beliefs, and even our identities? Human beings are naturally inclined towards narratives. From a very young age, we engage with stories, whether through bedtime tales, books, or later on, through movies and TV shows. But storytelling is not just about entertainment. It plays a crucial role in how we understand the world and ourselves. Think about it. When we recount our day to a friend, we don't just list events chronologically. We craft a narrative, complete with a beginning, middle, and end, highlighting certain events while omitting others, infusing it with our emotions and interpretations. This process helps us make sense of our experiences and gives our lives a coherent structure. But stories don't just help us to remember, they also shape our perceptions and biases. The way a story is framed can influence how we interpret information. This is known as the framing effect. For example, consider how the media reports on a particular event. The narrative constructed around that event can significantly influence public opinion. This is why it's essential to be aware of the stories we consume and the perspectives they present. In this episode, we're going to explore these questions from multiple angles. We'll delve into the psychological underpinnings of storytelling, look at its philosophical implications, and examine how mythology has been used to convey cultural history. We'll also touch on the modern landscape of storytelling in media and technology, and how it continues to evolve and influence us today. As we explore these ideas around storytelling, I encourage you to think about the stories that have shaped your own life. How have they influenced your perceptions, your beliefs, and your sense of self? And what role do you think storytelling plays in our collective human experience? So let's get into it then. The influence of storytelling on human perception. I'm going to start this episode then by looking at the psychological impact of storytelling. As we mentioned, humans are inherently narrative beings. From the moment we're born, we're surrounded by stories. Our parents read us bedtime stories, we watch cartoons and movies, and as we grow older, we immerse ourselves in novels, news, and even social media. But storytelling is more than just a way to pass the time. It's deeply embedded in our psychological makeup and plays a crucial role in shaping our minds. To begin, let's talk about narrative psychology, a field that explores how human beings construct and internalize narratives to make sense of their lives and experiences. This concept revolves around the idea that our identities are essentially stories that we tell ourselves. Think about how you might recount your life's journey to someone new. You don't simply list events, you craft a story. You highlight pivotal moments, you assign meaning to your experiences. This narrative helps you to understand who you are and how you fit into the world. Researchers in narrative psychology, such as Jerome Bruner, have shown that the way we construct these personal narratives significantly affects our mental health and well-being. Positive, coherent narratives can foster a strong sense of identity and purpose, while fragmented or negative narratives can contribute to feelings of confusion and distress. Memory plays a vital role in this process. Stories help us encode and retrieve memories more effectively. When information is presented in a narrative format, it engages multiple areas of the brain, making it easier to remember. For instance, consider how you remember a compelling movie plot much more vividly than a list of random facts. This is because stories create a context for the information, making it more relatable and easier to recall. Emotional engagement is another key factor. Stories have the power to evoke strong emotions, which can enhance memory retention and deepen our connection to the material. When we hear a touching story or watch a heart-wrenching film, the emotional impact makes the experience more memorable. This is why educators often use storytelling as a teaching tool. It helps students connect with the material on a deeper level. Beyond memory, storytelling also plays a crucial role in shaping our perceptions and biases. This is where we encounter the concept of the framing effect. The way a story is framed can significantly influence our interpretation of the information presented. For example, media coverage of an event can shape public opinion based on the narrative constructed around it. If a news story is framed to highlight the heroism of an individual, we're likely to perceive them positively. Conversely, if the same story focuses on their flaws or mistakes, our perceptions become negative. Confirmation bias is another psychological phenomenon closely tied to storytelling. This bias leads us to favor information that confirms our existing beliefs and ignores information that contradicts them. Stories that align with our views are more likely to resonate with us, reinforcing our preconceptions. This can create echo chambers, especially in today's digital age where algorithms tailor content to our preferences, feeding us narratives that already align with our existing beliefs. Stories also serve as powerful tools for empathy and social connection. When we engage with a well-told story, we often put ourselves in the shoes of the characters, experiencing their joys, sorrows, and struggles. This ability to empathize through stories is a fundamental aspect of our social nature. It allows us to understand and relate to others' experiences, creating compassion and connection. Empathy-driven storytelling is particularly impactful in social and therapeutic contexts. For instance, narrative therapy, a therapeutic approach developed by Michael White and David Epstein, uses storytelling to help individuals reframe their experiences and develop more empowering personal narratives. By exploring and reshaping the stories they tell about themselves, individuals can gain new insights, resolve conflicts, and it goes a huge way towards improving their personal growth. Now, let's consider the role of storytelling in shaping collective memory and cultural identity. Stories passed down through generations, whether they're myths, legends, or historical accounts, play a crucial role in preserving cultural heritage and shared values. These narratives help create a sense of belonging and continuity within communities. They provide a framework for understanding the past and navigating the present, reinforcing communal bonds and cultural identity. In modern times, the landscape of storytelling has expanded dramatically thanks to technological advancement. From films and television to video games and social media, the ways that we tell and consume stories have evolved. These new mediums offer immersive experiences that engage us on multiple sensory levels, creating powerful and lasting impressions. However, the proliferation of storytelling also comes with challenges. The sheer volume of narratives we're exposed to can lead to information overload, making it harder to discern which stories are trustworthy and which are not. Additionally, the rise of digital storytelling has given voice to a broader range of perspectives, but it has also enabled the spread of misinformation and biased narratives. It's essential to remain mindful of the stories we consume and the ones we tell. Understanding the psychological impact of storytelling can help us become more discerning and empathetic individuals. It can also empower us to harness the power of narratives to create positive change in our lives and our communities. Now stay with us as we move on to our next segment, where I'll dive into the philosophical perspectives on storytelling. We'll explore how great thinkers from Aristotle to the postmodernists have understood the power and purpose of narrative. But first, a note from our sponsor. A few episodes ago, I mentioned that this podcast would never be sponsored because I felt that having a sponsor would impinge upon my freedom of expression and artistic and creative vision and all that kind of thing. And that has since changed, unfortunately. the podcast is now sponsored. I'm a terrible hypocrite, but the podcast is sponsored by me. So I feel that that's an acceptable sort of grey area in which to exist when it comes to contradicting oneself. Now, when I say I'm sponsoring this podcast, I am sponsoring it with my new book, which is called The Observing Eye, A Guide to Living a More Authentic Life. Now, it's available on paperback and on the Kindle via Amazon, exclusively on Amazon, because there's a Kindle Unlimited deal that I have to adhere to for 3 months. But you can find it on there. You can go and search The Observing Eye on Amazon, and I will put the link in the show notes or description as well, so you can find it there a little bit easier. So the book essentially is a complement to the podcast, and the purpose of the book is to give you some philosophical and psychological tools and ideas to challenge your own perception, your own self-narrative. It's all about storytelling, about how storytelling and narrative shape who we are and our identity, and how we can change that narrative. So it's definitely got a narrative therapy vibe to it, put it that way. And it's out now. It's been out for a few weeks. And if you'd like to go and purchase a copy, that would be wonderful. And I'd really appreciate it. So that's my sponsor window. There we are. My book is out. You can buy it on Amazon. Links in the description. Or you can just search The Observing Eye on Amazon as well. Thank you for your time, as always. Much love. And now back to the episode. Now, let's turn our attention to the philosophical perspectives on storytelling. Throughout history, philosophers have pondered the nature and significance of narratives, offering us insights into how stories shape our understanding of the world and our place within it. Let's start with one of the earliest and most influential philosophers, Aristotle. In his seminal work, Poetics, Aristotle laid the groundwork for much of Western literary theory. He introduced the concept of mimesis, which means imitation. Aristotle argued that art and storytelling imitate life, and through this imitation we gain a deeper understanding of reality. By observing characters and events in a story, we reflect on our own experiences and the human condition. Another crucial concept from Aristotle's Poetics is catharsis, the emotional cleansing or purging that audiences experience through their engagement with a story, particularly tragedies. According to Aristotle, watching a tragic play allows us to experience intense emotions, pity and fear primarily, in a safe and controlled environment. This process helps us confront and process these emotions, leading to a sense of relief and emotional balance. Moving forward, let's have a look at existentialism, which I've covered in a previous episode, but is a philosophical movement that emerged in the 20th century. Existential philosophers such as Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus viewed storytelling as a means to impose meaning on an otherwise chaotic and meaningless world. For them, life is inherently absurd, and it's up to each individual to create their own meaning and purpose through their choices and actions. Sartre, in particular, emphasized the idea of existence precedes essence. This means that we are not born with a predetermined purpose, rather we create our essence through our actions and decisions. Storytelling, in this context, becomes a way to navigate the existential angst and absurdity of life. By crafting and sharing our own narratives, we construct a sense of identity and direction. Stories, therefore, are essential tools for existential navigation and self-understanding. Albert Camus, another prominent existentialist, introduced the concept of the absurd. He argued that there is a fundamental conflict between our desire for meaning and the indifferent universe. Camus' famous work, The Myth of Sisyphus, illustrates this point. Sisyphus, condemned to roll a boulder up a hill for eternity, represents the human struggle for purpose in a purposeless world. Yet Camus suggests that we must imagine Sisyphus happy, finding meaning in the struggle itself. Through storytelling, we confront the absurd and seek to find personal significance in our endeavours. Transitioning to the latter part of the 20th century, postmodernist philosophers brought a new perspective on storytelling. Jean-François Lyotard, a key figure in postmodernism, famously declared the end of grand narratives or meta-narratives. These grand narratives are overarching stories or ideologies that claim to explain everything, such as religions, scientific theories, or political ideology. Postmodernists argue that these grand narratives often suppress individual voices and experiences, promoting a singular perspective at the expense of diversity. Instead, Postmodernism celebrates fragmentation, plurality, and subjectivity. It embraces a multitude of smaller, personal stories that reflect the complexity and diversity of human experience. In this view, storytelling becomes a way to resist homogenization and to honor the uniqueness of each individual's perspective. Jacques Derrida, another influential postmodern philosopher, introduced the concept of deconstruction. Derrida argued that language and text are inherently unstable and open to multiple interpretations. This idea extends to storytelling, suggesting that any narrative can be deconstructed to reveal hidden assumptions, contradictions, and biases. Through deconstruction, we can uncover new meanings and challenge dominant narratives. These postmodern ideas have profound implications for how we understand and engage with stories. They remind us that there is no single definitive interpretation of a story. Rather, narratives are dynamic and multifaceted, shaped by the perspectives and contexts of both the storyteller and the audience. In summary, then, philosophical perspectives on storytelling reveal its profound significance in shaping our understanding of reality, identity, and meaning. From Aristotle's notions of imitation and emotional cleansing to the existential quest for personal significance and the postmodern celebrations of diverse narratives, storytelling remains a vital tool for exploring and expressing the complexities of human existence. Mythology and cultural history, then. Myths are some of the oldest and most enduring stories that humans have told. They are more than just tales of gods and heroes. They are the bedrock of cultural identity and historical memory. First, let's define what we mean by mythology. Myths are traditional stories that have been passed down through generations. They often involve supernatural beings, gods, heroes, and cosmic events. But myths are not merely fanciful tales. They serve profound functions within their cultures. They explain natural phenomena, articulate moral values, and provide a sense of identity and purpose. One of the most significant roles of mythology is its function as a cultural lens. Myths encapsulate the beliefs, values, and existential questions of the societies that create them. For example, consider the Greek myth of Prometheus, who defied the gods to bring fire to humanity. This myth is not just about a rebellious titan, it reflects the Greek values of innovation, defiance, and the quest for knowledge. It also carries a cautionary message about the consequences of overreaching ambition. The sparkling stars high in the sky at night will hide those rays and offer some relief. Then, in the morning, once again, the sun will melt the frost. This never-ending burden of your present agony will wear you down, for the one who is to rescue you someday is not yet even born. This is your reward for acting as a friend to human beings. Though you are a god, you were not deterred by any fear of angering the gods. You gave men honors they did not deserve, possessions they were not entitled to. Because of that, you will remain on guard here on this joyless rock, standing upright with your legs straight, and you will never sleep. You will often scream in pain and sorrow, for Zeus's heart is pitilessly harsh, and everyone whose ruling power is new is cruel and ruthless. Another powerful example is the Norse myth of Ragnarok, the end of the world scenario where gods and giants battle to mutual destruction. This myth embodies the Norse ethos of courage in the face of inevitable doom, highlighting the value of bravery and honor even when defeat is certain. Through such myths, cultures articulate their worldview and reinforce communal values. Joseph Campbell, a prominent mythologist, explored these themes in his work The Hero with 1,000 Faces. Campbell identified a universal narrative structure he called the monomyth, or the hero's journey. This archetypal story involves a hero who embarks on an adventure, faces trials and challenges, receives aid, and ultimately returns transformed. Campbell's hero's journey can be seen in myths and stories across cultures and eras, from the ancient tales of Gilgamesh to modern-day blockbusters like Star Wars. This universal pattern speaks to fundamental aspects of the human experience, such as growth, transformation, and the quest for meaning. By engaging with these stories, we tap into shared human truths and gain insights into our own lives. Let's consider some specific examples of how mythology conveys cultural history. In many indigenous cultures, myths serve as oral histories, preserving knowledge and traditions through storytelling. For instance, the Dreamtime stories of Aboriginal Australians describe the creation of the world and the laws governing human behaviour. These stories are not just entertainment, they are vital means of passing down cultural wisdom and maintaining a connection to the land and the ancestors. Similarly, Native American myths often include tales of creation, moral lessons, and explanations of natural phenomena. The Iroquois creation myth, for example, tells of Sky Woman falling to earth and creating the land with the help of animals. This story reflects the Iroquois' deep respect for nature and the interdependence of all living things. In ancient Egypt, myths were integral to the culture's understanding of life, death, and the afterlife. The story of Osiris, Isis, and Horus, for example, explains the cycles of life and death and the pharaoh's divine right to rule. Osiris, the god of the afterlife, is murdered by his brother Set, but is resurrected by his wife Isis. Their son Horus avenges his father and becomes the ruler of Egypt. This myth encapsulates themes of resurrection, justice, and the divine order, reinforcing the cultural and religious beliefs of the ancient Egyptians. Moving to the east, the Hindu epics such as the Mahabharata and the Ramayana are rich with mythology and cultural history. The Mahabharata, one of the longest epic poems in the world, includes the Bhagavad Gita, a spiritual and philosophical dialogue that addresses the moral dilemmas faced by the warrior Arjuna. These epics are not just stories, they are fundamental texts that guide ethical and spiritual conduct in Hindu culture. Mythology also plays a crucial role in shaping national identities and collective memory. For example, the Arthurian legends have been a cornerstone of British cultural identity for centuries. The tales of King Arthur, the Knights of the Round Table, and the quest for the Holy Grail reflect ideals of chivalry, honour, and unity. These legends have been reinterpreted and retold countless times, adapting to the changing values and aspirations of British society. My personal favourite adaptation, Jesus Christ, is Monty Python's Holy Grail. That's my favourite adaptation of the Knights of the Round Table, but I digress. In modern times, mythology continues to evolve and adapt, finding new expressions in literature, film, and popular culture. Superhero stories, for instance, can be seen as contemporary myths. Characters like Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman embody timeless archetypes and moral lessons, resonating with audiences around the world. These modern myths reflect current societal values and challenges, such as ancient myths did for their cultures. Myths also serve as a bridge between the past and the present, helping us understand and connect with our cultural heritage. They remind us of our shared humanity and the enduring themes that unite us across time and space. By engaging with myths, we can gain a deeper appreciation of our cultural roots and the universal human experience that they reflect. So far, then, we've journeyed through the psychological and the philosophical dimensions of storytelling and explored the impacts of mythology. Now let's turn our attention to modern storytelling and media. In today's digital age, the way we tell and consume stories has undergone a dramatic transformation, influencing our perceptions and shaping cultural narratives in new and profound ways. Modern storytelling has expanded far beyond traditional formats like books and oral tales. With the advent of technology, we now have a myriad of platforms that offer immersive and interactive storytelling experiences. Films, televisions, video games, and social media are just a few of the mediums that have revolutionized how we engage with stories. Let's start with film and television. These visual mediums have a unique power to convey stories in a highly engaging and impactful manner. Through a combination of visual imagery, sound, and narrative, films and TV shows can evoke strong emotions and create lasting impressions. The cinematic experience allows us to see and hear the story unfold, making it a multi-sensory experience that can feel incredibly real. One of the most significant impacts of modern visual storytelling is its ability to reach a global audience. Hollywood blockbusters, for example, are seen by millions of people around the world, creating a shared cultural experience. This global reach can create a sense of connection and shared understanding across different cultures. However, it also raises questions about the homogenization of culture and the dominance of certain narratives over others. Another fascinating development in modern storytelling is the rise of video games. Unlike passive forms of media, video games offer interactive storytelling, where players can influence the outcome of the narrative through their choices and actions. This interactivity creates a deeper level of engagement as players become active participants in the story rather than just observers. Role-playing games and massively multiplayer online games are particularly noteworthy in this regard. These games often feature complex, branching storylines that evolve based on the player's decisions. This not only enhances the immersive experience, but also allows for personalized storytelling, where each player's journey can be unique. Games like the Witcher series, Mass Effect, and World of Warcraft exemplify the potential of video games as powerful storytelling mediums. Social media has also transformed the landscape of storytelling in profound ways. Platforms like Twitter, or X, as it's now called, Instagram, and TikTok allow individuals to share their stories with a wide audience instantaneously. This democratization of storytelling gives voice to diverse perspectives and experiences that might otherwise be overlooked. Social media enables people to connect over shared experiences, build communities, and engage in collective storytelling. However, the rise of social media storytelling comes with its own set of challenges. The fast-paced nature of social media can lead to the spread of misinformation and the oversimplification of complex narratives. Additionally, the curated nature of social media profiles often presents a distorted view of reality, where individuals highlight only the positive aspects of their lives. This can create unrealistic expectations and contribute to feelings of inadequacy among their viewers. The use of storytelling in advertising and marketing is another intriguing aspect of modern media. Brands have recognized the power of stories to connect with consumers on an emotional level. Advertisements now often tell a story, aiming to create an emotional bond between the consumer and the product. This narrative approach to marketing can be incredibly effective, as it taps into our innate love for stories and our tendency to form emotional connections. Consider the famous Share a Coke campaign by Coca-Cola. By replacing their iconic logo with popular names and encouraging customers to share their experiences on social media, Coca-Cola created a narrative around their products that emphasized personal connections and sharing joy. This storytelling strategy not only boosted sales, but also reinforced the brand's image as a facilitator of happiness and social bonding. If that campaign came up in the 80s, I think Share a Coke would have had a very different context. Another modern trend is the use of transmedia storytelling, where a single narrative unfolds across multiple platforms and formats. This approach allows for a richer and more immersive experience, as different aspects of the story can be explored in different ways. For instance, a movie might be complemented by a series of webisodes, a comic book, and an interactive website, each adding new layers to the overall narrative. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is a prime example of transmedia storytelling. The interconnected films, TV series, comics, and digital content create a vast and intricate narrative web that fans can explore in multiple ways. This not only keeps the audience engaged, but also allows for a more comprehensive and multifaceted storytelling experience. As we navigate the modern landscape of storytelling, it's essential to recognize both the opportunities and challenges it presents. The democratization of storytelling through social media and digital platforms has given rise to a more diverse and inclusive array of narratives. However, it also requires us to be more discerning consumers of stories, critically evaluating the information we encounter and being mindful of the narratives we choose to amplify. In conclusion, modern storytelling and media have expanded the ways we can share and experience stories, making them more interactive, immersive, and accessible. Whether through the visual spectacle of films, the interactive engagement of video games, or the instant connectivity of social media, stories continue to shape our perceptions, influence our beliefs, and connect us to one another. Question for you then. How have films, games, or social media narratives influenced your perceptions and beliefs? And what role do you think these new forms of storytelling play in our collective cultural narrative? Something to think about. In our previous segments, we've journeyed through the psychological and philosophical aspects of storytelling, explored the depths of mythology, and examined the impact of modern media on how we tell and consume stories. Now, let's bring all of these ideas together with some case studies and examples, because I do like a bit of empirical evidence to support my discussion. I'm going to start with historical narratives and their role in shaping collective memory and identity. History itself is a grand narrative, constructed from countless stories about the past. The way we tell these stories influences how we understand our heritage and ourselves. Consider the example of the American Civil Rights Movement. The narrative of this pivotal period is often framed around key figures like Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and Malcolm X. Their stories of courage, sacrifice, and resilience have become central to the American identity, highlighting themes of justice, equality, and the ongoing struggle for civil rights.
This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children.
These narratives have not only preserved the memory of the movement, but also continue to inspire new generations to fight for social justice. The storytelling around the civil rights movement has shaped public perception, influenced policy changes, and fostered a sense of collective purpose and identity. Moving from historical narratives to literature, let's look at how certain books have catalyzed social change. Harriet Beecher Stowe's novel Uncle Tom's Cabin is a prime example. Published in 1852, this novel depicted the harsh realities of slavery in the United States. It played a significant role in changing public opinion about slavery and fueled the abolitionist movement. The power of Uncle Tom's Cabin lies in its ability to evoke empathy and outrage. By telling the personal stories of enslaved individuals, Stowe's narrative humanized the plight of slaves and made the moral and ethical issues of slavery impossible to ignore. Abraham Lincoln is famously said to have greeted Stowe with the words, "So you're the little lady who started this great war." Another literary example is George Orwell's 1984. This dystopian novel explores themes of totalitarianism, surveillance, and the manipulation of truth. Orwell's chilling narrative has influenced public discourse about government control and privacy. Terms like Big Brother and Orwellian have become part of our cultural lexicon, shaping how we perceive and discuss issues of power and autonomy. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. His heart sank as he thought of the enormous power arrayed against him, the ease with which any party intellectual would overthrow him in debate, the subtle arguments which he would not be able to understand, much less answer. And yet he was in the right. They were wrong, and he was right. The obvious, the silly, and the true had got to be defended. Truisms are true. Hold on to that. The solid world exists. Its laws do not change. Stones are hard. Water is wet. Objects unsupported fall toward the Earth's centre. With the feeling that he was speaking to O'Brien and also that he was setting forth an important axiom, he wrote, "Freedom is the freedom to say that 2 + 2 makes 4. If that is granted, all else follows." Now let's turn to personal stories and their transformative power, particularly in therapeutic settings. And we're going to come back to narrative therapy, which I mentioned earlier, which is the one that was developed by Michael White and David Epstein. So in narrative therapy, individuals are encouraged to view their lives as stories and themselves as the authors of those stories. By reauthoring their narratives, they can find new meanings and solutions to their problems. For example, someone struggling with low self-esteem might be guided to rewrite their story, emphasizing their strengths and achievements rather than their perceived failures. One poignant case study in narrative therapy involves a young woman named Sarah who struggled with depression and feelings of worthlessness. Through narrative therapy, Sarah was able to reframe her story, recognizing the resilience and courage she had shown in overcoming past challenges. This shift in perspective helped her develop a more positive and empowering self-narrative, which significantly improved her mental health and well-being. Storytelling also plays a crucial role in community healing and reconciliation. Consider the Truth and Reconciliation Commission established in countries like South Africa and Canada. These commissions provided platforms for victims of gross human rights violations to share their stories, seek justice, and promote healing. In South Africa, the TRC was instrumental in addressing the atrocities committed during apartheid. The stories shared by survivors and perpetrators helped the nation confront its painful past and laid the groundwork for rebuilding trust and unity. Similarly, Canada's TRC focused on the experiences of Indigenous peoples affected by the residential school system, creating a national dialogue of reconciliation and cultural healing. Let's also consider the impact of digital storytelling in the modern age. The Me Too movement, which began as a social media hashtag, quickly grew into a global movement against sexual harassment and assault. The power of Me Too lies in the collective storytelling of millions of individuals who shared their experiences, breaking the silence and challenging systemic abuse. These personal narratives, shared on platforms like Twitter and Facebook, created a powerful sense of solidarity and amplified the call for accountability and change. The movement has led to significant legal and cultural shifts, highlighting the transformative power of collective storytelling in the digital age. Finally, let's look at how storytelling in marketing and branding shapes consumer behavior. Companies increasingly use narrative techniques to create emotional connections with their audience. Consider Nike's Just Do It campaign. Through powerful stories of athletes overcoming adversity, Nike has built a brand identity centered on determination, empowerment, and excellence. These narratives resonate deeply with consumers, fostering brand loyalty and influencing purchasing decisions. By aligning their personal stories of perseverance and success with the brand's narrative, consumers develop a strong emotional bond. In conclusion, these case studies and examples illustrate the profound impact of storytelling across different contexts. From shaping historical memory and catalyzing social change, transforming personal narratives, and driving marketing strategies, storytelling remains a powerful tool for influencing perception and creating connection. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all I have to say on the subject of the influence of storytelling on human perception. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the psychological mechanisms that shape our identities to the philosophical insights on narrative and meaning, the cultural richness of mythology, the evolution of modern storytelling through media, and the powerful case studies that illustrate these themes. Storytelling truly is a cornerstone of the human experience. Let's take a moment to recap the key points we've discussed. We began with the psychological impact of storytelling, highlighting how narratives shape our cognitive processes and emotions. We saw how stories help us construct our identities, enhance memory retention, and influence our perceptions and biases. We also touched on the importance of empathy and social connection fostered through storytelling. Next, we delved into the philosophical perspective, starting with Aristotle's concepts of mimesis and catharsis, which laid the foundation for understanding how art and storytelling imitates life and evokes emotional responses. We explored existentialist views on storytelling as a means to navigate the absurdity of life and create personal meaning. Postmodernist critiques challenged the dominance of grand narratives, celebrating the diversity and subjectivity of individual stories. In our exploration of mythology, we uncovered how myths serve as cultural lenses, preserving and conveying the values, beliefs, and existential questions of societies. Joseph Campbell's hero's journey illustrated the universal patterns in mythic narratives that resonate deeply with the human experience, while examples from various cultures showcase the role of mythology in shaping cultural identity and historical memory. Modern storytelling and media have expanded the ways we tell and consume stories, making them more interactive, immersive, and accessible. From the visual spectacle of films and the interactive engagement of video games to the instant connectivity of social media, these new forms of storytelling continue to shape our perceptions and cultural narratives. We also discussed the role of storytelling in advertising and marketing and the rise of transmedia storytelling. Finally, our case studies and examples brought these themes to life. We examined historical narratives like the Civil Rights Movement and literary works like Uncle Tom's Cabin and 1984, highlighting their impact on social change and public perception. We looked at personal stories in therapeutic settings, community healing through truth and reconciliation commissions, and the power of digital storytelling in movements like Me Too. The influence of narrative in branding and marketing, as exemplified by campaigns like Nike's Just Do It, further demonstrated the pervasive power of storytelling. As we conclude this episode, it's clear that storytelling is not just a form of entertainment, but a fundamental way through which we make sense of our world, our experiences, and ourselves. It shapes our perceptions, influences our beliefs, and connects us to others. Whether through ancient myths or modern media, the stories we tell and the stories we hear are integral to our understanding of what it means to be human. So what can we take away from today's discussion? First, recognize the power of the stories you consume and share. Be mindful of the narratives that shape your perceptions and challenge yourself to seek out diverse perspectives. Second, embrace the power of storytelling in your own life. Whether through writing, speaking, or digital media, your stories have the power to influence, inspire, and connect with others. As we wrap up today, I'd like to thank you all for joining me on this exploration of storytelling and its impact on human perception. Your engagement, your curiosity, and your mere presence make the hours of toil worthwhile. As always, if anything in this episode has resonated with you in any way, then I'd love to hear from you. You can share your stories via Substack at theobservingeye.com or on social media. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/@theobservingeye and on TikTok and Instagram with the handle @theobservingeye as well. Take care, everybody. Much love, and I'll catch you soon.
You've been listening to The Observing Eye. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I hope it's been useful. And if you're interested in any more of my writing or work around psychology, philosophy, and general day-to-day living, please go and take a look at my Substack, which is theobservingeye.com. And that's I as in the letter, not I as in the gelatinous organ through which you see. Take care, everybody. Much love, and I'll catch you soon.